over here, get
Oh,
you behind the
baby.
desk, get you on the Zoom call, whatever that may be.
Look at that.
I'm excited for the next stage of this. And again, I reiterate, like, this is no longer a solo production, right? Like, I'm fortunate to have people that help me out with this thing. This will only go as far as people allow us to. That's really what it is. You know, the more people that support what we do, and that's our job. Our job is to entertain them and to bring them information. I want to be entertaining and informative, not the other way around. Priority number one is to entertain. Priority number two is to inform. D1 Rejects is not here to be your investigative reporting or your in-depth analysis here and there. We want to give you good information. We want to entertain you. We want to elevate small college football, not just cover it. We're not here to cover small school football. We're here to take it to the next level. We're here to put it on a stage that people have not seen before, man. I think that's what's important to know about us.
Dude, fire me up. Today's episode of the Left Hash Call, we need very little introduction for this individual. Today, we are joined by a Michigan man who is responsible for amplifying the voices of those who are rarely in the spotlight. He is truly doing something that no one has done before and has set the bar incredibly high for those in the small college football media landscape. And he is barely scratching the surface. You've seen his work all over social media and YouTube, including his version of College Game Day and facility tours across the country. He is the creator and host of Division I Rejects. Welcome to the show, Kobe Manzo. What is going on, man?
Goosebumps, brother. I always give the intros. It's sweet to be on the other side of it. That makes me want to go like above and beyond for every guest down the road of like, you got to give them the butterflies to start things off, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, shoot, you deserve it, man. I have been, we've chatted a lot in the past few months. I've been such a big fan of yours. I've been watching your show since you were in the dorm room up there in northern Michigan, and just to see the growth of the show, the growth of you, and all the cool stuff that you've been doing, man. I've been a fan for a long time.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I'm excited to get you in the fold here very, very shortly.
Yes, that is coming. Very excited to be a part of some really cool things coming up for you and your show. But this show's about you, man. I want to learn a lot about you and what makes you tick. But first of all, how has the summer been? How is this year of Division I Rejects been, and really just how are you?
Man, summer has been hot as hell. In short, I'm in the basement studio right now. I got the fans going. It's been, Marquette gets a bad rap for the winters, but the summers are tough too at sometimes, man. It's going to be like 75 degrees at the low today. But in terms of the podcast, this summer has been a great opportunity for me to refocus and really put a lot of effort and energy into this thing and legitimizing the business side of the podcast, something that you and I have talked about a little bit of
Right.
trying to make this something that is sustainable. And I think the first thing I'll say, and I'll always go back to, is it's like, this has been a one-man operation for a long time. That is no longer the case. Having guys like Jimmy and Matt that help me, they are kind of the faces on the show. Drew Carpenter now coming on the show to help talk some D2 football. Even some guys behind the scenes. Been working with guys like Mark, who helps me with some of the graphics, some other people that maybe help us out with some of the research. This is growing, and I love the way that we're trending. So in no way, shape, or form, is the first thing I want to say is like, this is not a solo effort anymore. And I'm so fortunate to be in that position. I want to make this something that is sustainable. And I guess, like, to start things off, I hope D1 Rejects is around longer than Kobe Manzo is. That sounds super morbid, but I hope it outlasts me, dude.
Well, it feels like every single thing that you do is super intentional. Like, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of accidents that happen, and you can tell because of intentionally bringing on guests from all sorts of different walks of life, intentionally going into facilities that you can really showcase something cool, and there's not a lot of, like I said, accidents that are coming your way, and so that just goes to
Not
show.
anymore, right?
um,
Try
right,
and
well,
polish it
sure,
up.
sure.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely. But I want to go through your journey because I think it's really unique, and it's really cool. um, let's go back to high school. What was recruiting like for you coming out of high school? Were you a big blue chip prospect coming out of Lake Orion, or what was that process like?
Orion, Seth. Orion. That's right.
Orion.
I
Oh,
ain't
my
gonna live
bad.
against
Okay.
you. That's
All
the
right. All right.
everyone gets it. Everyone gets it. Was I a blue chip? Man, absolutely not. I think the one thing I'll try and keep it short, but the biggest piece of my recruiting process, I remember sitting down, I think I've told this story before with our defensive coordinator at the time, Brad Thomas, and we sit down and we talked about my future and kind of where he saw me. And a running back talking to his DC, maybe not the most usual back and forth, but he sat me down. He's like, Kobe, right now where I see you, just to level with you, I think you're a high level Division II kid. I don't think you're quite to the Division I level. I think you can go and compete at a very high level. I think you're a GLIAC caliber running back. And that for me was super important. And of course, he bookends that with, now I hoping you go and prove me wrong, right? Go prove me wrong, go play on the biggest stage and achieve, whatever goals you set out to be. But right now, this is where I see you. I was a 5'9" white running back that was not outrunning anyone in the defensive secondary. I was not getting tackled by any first tackler, but I wasn't outrunning anyone. I did not have the shiftiness to play in a traditional, maybe spread style offense or be that kind of feature back. I certainly was a guy to get you some yardage in short down situations. I was fast enough, athletic enough, and I thought that the D2 level was a great fit for me. So for me, it was setting my expectations very early on with what I knew I was capable of and maybe kind of identifying or trying to at least identify what my ceiling could be at the college level. And like everyone, trying to find that fit where, yeah, we can go and be a part of a really good team, but also I'm not trying to ride pine for 4 years. Like, let me go be a part of a good team and try and be a difference maker on that team. And so I felt that D2 and Northern specifically, I'm sure we'll get into it more, but I thought going into it that would be a great opportunity for me.
What was Northern kind of the top of your list from the jump, or where you kind of looked at some other schools in the GLIAC, or what were some
Northern
of the what was
Northern was like just kind of around. And I always like, it's funny, like people talk about having this aha moment when they get on campus and they're like, man, this is home. Like I never had that. I think like, uh,
really?
for lack of
Wow.
a better term, sometimes I'm like, that's bullshit. Like, where are you guys talking about? Like, you got on campus and immediately had this wave wash over you. And I've heard your story about River Falls. Like, that's so sweet that you got to
Right.
experience kind of that feeling after the visit. And for me, it was, I remember sitting down old school pro and con lists from the schools that I was fortunate enough to have some type of athletic aid and or academic aid from, and sitting down, it was like every school had a big pro and a big con. And then I got to Northern and it was like, well, they have a journalism program. It's not the best journalism program, but it's there. And my degree will say multimedia journalism. And the
Hmm.
cons, I was like, yeah, no, there's not really anything that came to mind. And so at the end of the day, it was not like this glowing decision. It was a matter of like, this seems to be the right fit for me. I didn't realize that it was going to be an awesome place for me until I actually got on campus. And then, having graduated last May, it was an incredible time being up here. I've made a lot of great relationships and like can truly say now, being past the experience, that I made the right decision. I didn't know that going into it, but I guess no one really does.
Real analytical approach for you on that decision making
Try.
process for sure. I love that. Hey, sometimes the old pro con list is it's the truest
Necessary.
form of trying to, yeah, right, trying to figure that out. I definitely made my pro cons list when I was trying to figure out like which coaching job to take. But yeah, some of
Yep.
that River Falls was a magical deal. And you mentioned, your major multimedia journalism. We're both multimedia journalism graduates, which is
Okay. I didn't know that.
go figure. I don't know if we've talked about that, but yeah,
I
as
did not
a
know that. That's
ju-
awesome.
yeah, journalism graduate myself. Were you always into the media side of things? Was that a high school thing and then kind of carried on to college? And yeah, how did you really get into that to start?
100%. Took a class my freshman or sophomore year of high school, like our intro broadcasting class. At Lake Orion, we have one of the best broadcasting programs in the state. We are actually the NFHS Broadcasting Program of the Year in the country for 2018-19. So it was a matter of, yes, I had some interest, but I also had a very, very good program led by Roger Smith, who's still down there. He does a fantastic job with that group and WDBC. And I was just kind of the beneficiary of a great set of systems, being in place. We did a live newscast every, 4 days of the week, and a lot of really high level production we did there. And so I got involved with some of the news and sports side of that. I always knew I wanted to be a visual storyteller. I think is the best way I try and describe myself these days. And whether that is the podcast or some of the video or other freelance work, some of the things I do up here at Northern, I caught on very quickly in high school. This is what I want to do. And I didn't know what exactly my quote unquote dream job was right away. And I still don't know if that is necessarily something I could answer, but I knew pretty early on what I wanted to get into, and football was just going to be my vehicle to give me a little bit of a jump start in that path.
What was your first couple of years at Northern like? Because obviously, you had an injury in there. Can you just kind of talk about your football experience in Northern and kind of how that kind of shaped who you are now?
Sure, man. Yeah. Freshman year was a blur, like blink and it's gone. I actually remember very little, and it wasn't because I was inebriated for its entirety, I promise. But it's just one of those things. Like, it was such a weird deal of trying to figure out who I was and where I wanted to go with where I was at in life. It was nice to maybe have a 6 or 7 hour buffer away from home, get to make a lot of my own decisions, that type of deal. Everyone will tell you the same deal. But of course, COVID year coming in, man, we practice all fall, we practice all spring. We're in the dome up here at like 5:45, 6 o'clock in the morning. Come in and we're doing Oklahoma drill, like back when that was still allowed, you know what I mean?
Legal,
And
right? Yeah.
you playing Keds with dudes at 6 o'clock in the morning, and that was a grind. So I get through that. I feel really good about where I'm at in the team. We had a very talented backfield, so I'm coming into the season probably looking at like a running back 3 type of spot, but someone who like could seriously play and contend for snaps. Like, there was really no talk of me redshirting. I felt very confident about my place and kind of earning my stripes going forward. And you kind of said it, like 20 minutes into our first practice of fall camp, and ACL and it would have been the lateral meniscus the first time. They go 20 minutes in, and that was a heartbreaker. Like, I didn't
Mm.
even get a chance to start the season, and now I'm rehabbing while everyone else is still gearing up for year one. So that was a tough one. And then to make a very long story incredibly short, it was day one, and then I rehab, come back day 5 of year 2, tear it again, and then
Mm.
I rehab, come back, and I'm in the weight room about to start fall camp the next year, doing some split squat, whatever, caves on me, tear it again, and that was all she wrote for me.
Man, that I feel like we have similar journeys because like I feel like I could never get off the ground myself. I mean, it was like year one, it's like great, no problems, but then it's like hamstring. Then finally, Achilles later on. It's just like
Yeah.
I feel for you. The
And you do
yeah,
everything to
that's
take care of your body. Like, you approach everything like from a very
right,
holistic way in terms of, nutrition, hydration, recovery, the
right,
all nine. Like, I try and do it right. I was never an injury prone guy in high school, never, all the way up until that first knee injury. And it was just a weird twist of fate. And I'll tell you the same thing. The first knee surgery was like the best thing that could have happened to me, forced me to open some doors and really pursue what it is I'm doing now. And
right.
to say I wouldn't have gotten to this later, I think that'd be wrong, but it forced me to get on it early, right? It forced me to start this stuff early and start to really prioritize. The second and third surgery can go kick rocks, dude. Those sucked. I don't.
Yeah, oh
The,
my
the
gosh,
first one, yeah, like that's an eye opener. I can look back at that. The second two, I,
sure.
I could be more than happy if those never happened.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That. I mean, that's just that. I can't even imagine the second and the third. The mental. I mean, the mental piece was probably just as hard, if not harder, than the physical piece. I can imagine.
100%.
But
You're
you
watching those
mentioned
guys that you came in with, and they're, starting to turn into these like all conference caliber guys. And you're sitting there on the sideline, you're like, shit, man, that's supposed to be me. Like, I'm supposed to be out here with
right.
my guys, like still going, every workout, every team meeting, every function, every game. And it's like, man, I'm putting all the time and effort in. Like, I need to be out there. And at some point, it's out of your control. It's tough.
Yeah, you mentioned, it kind of springboarded you into what you're doing now. Is that kind of why D1 Rejects kind of started earlier than you thought it would, or just talk about starting D1R and how that really first all came about.
Yeah, well, and it's really cool. So you probably see a little bit. There you go. Soundboard right here, the original Rodecaster, and then I just got 4 of these like Rode Pod mics. I say that not to flex on anyone; they're not expensive. But this was a grad gift from my parents, my senior year of high school. I have used these to produce all 200 plus episodes of D1 Rejects, and so they were the ones that I guess technically got me started. They knew obviously I wanted to get into this. We had talked about it, and so they went out and got this for me, and that was like the best gift ever because it enabled me to go out and produce a high level, high quality product. And I think it's so important that we leave up the first couple episodes of D1R, as terrible and as shitty as they are. They're up on YouTube. You can go to D1 Rejects and hit oldest on the videos, and you'll see all of our old episodes in the dorm room, in my basement. Some of the audio only episodes aren't even on there that we've done in kitchens and living rooms and vehicles. Like, this has been all over the place. I think the biggest thing for me was just getting that equipment was almost a deal of like, all right, I got to use this stuff now, right? Like, I can't just let this sit. And once I got over the fact that the first couple episodes were going to stink and then be like really, really bad. Like long term, I thought they were pretty good at the time. Then you just got to start creating, man. That's the one thing I tell everyone. Like the only way to get better is to start. I mean, you know that as someone who's been around it. So starting D1 Rejects was yeah, it kind of got spurred along by this injury, and that made me really start to try and focus and do this. And maybe my trajectory has changed a few times along the way, but the pod has always and will continue to grow, my friend.
I think it's so cool to have those still up there because you can go back and be like,
Yeah.
man, from where we were to where we are now,
I
it's
want to take
something
them down so
special.
bad, dude. You have no idea. Like, I actually want
No,
to go
never.
and rip the first like 70 episodes off the face of the earth so no one can see them. And then every time I think about doing it, I'm like, I remember like someone asked me about starting a podcast, and it's like they can't watch D1R 209 from last week where we have Coach Anise on and then think, oh yeah, I can go do this. But they can watch our first 5 episodes and think, oh my gosh, not only could I do this, I could do it so much better than these clowns. And like
Right.
that's exactly how you want them to feel, because their first product is not going to look like where we're at now. It takes a long time.
When you were first starting, was there any sort of, I guess I'll say adversity with those first few episodes? And I guess I don't know if embarrassing is the right word, but was there any sort of, fighting for yourself a little bit? Be like, hey man, this is going to be something. Just hang with me here.
Yeah.
Was there any of that starting out, or were you like, screw it, I know where this is going?
No, I had no idea where it was going. And I had a couple of good stories for you. So Zach Keen, former quarterback up here at Northern, turned firefighter now. Salute to you, sir. But he was a guy that was on the podcast at first. And I remember one of the first, a couple of weeks of producing the pod, he's like, Kobe, dude, I think we need to change the name, like Division 1 Rejects. It was going to be D1 Rejects or D2 Dorm Talk. I knew I
Right.
was
Yeah.
outgrowing the dorm, so we stuck with D1R. He's like, Kobe, I think we need to change the name. I think people don't like it because they think we're shitting on all these, small school players and whatever. And so that was like one of those points very early on where I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I think it's kind of fun and memorable. Like, people just got to get over that. So that was kind of a fun deal right from the get-go. I think finding our voice was really important. Now we strictly talk about D2, D3, and NAI football. Man, those first couple dozen episodes, even further into the first maybe even 100, like we're talking NFL ball, big college football.
Oh yeah.
And it's like you run the risk when you do that of just becoming noise in an already a crowded space. Why take all this energy that we have and put it towards something that's already getting the coverage when we can take that and do some real research on these teams that deserve love? So finding my voice took a lot longer than like 5 or 10 episodes. That was huge. And I think being taken seriously at the beginning is a real deal, man. People don't know to take you serious or not. We're doing an episode in the dorm, and I remember my roommate, shout out Peak, I think had some girls over in the room or something. One of them had like left a bag while we were recording the pod. She just we're in the middle of recording, walks right through, grabs the bag, steps in front of both cameras, kind of slowly gets her way out of the dorm. I remember sitting there just mouth open like, what is this, man? What do you think we're doing over here? But like, first couple episodes, she's not thinking, oh, this is some big production. Like, it's a couple guys talking in the dorm. So yeah, I mean, getting taken seriously was something that definitely took a little bit of time, but the guests and the people we've had on the show have always done just that. We haven't had anyone really come on here and clown us. And I really appreciate that. I'm pretty selective in who we bring on the show. And we've had, I mean, dozens and dozens and dozens of just genuine dudes and genuine humans on here. So fortunate, man.
The, when did that shift happen? Because you mentioned you started out talking NFL ball a little bit. When was there a point where like we are talking D2, D3, and NAI? That's the focus, and that's what we want to be about.
That's a good question. I know this studio, I guess, debuted in episode 50 something. And I think we were just starting to make that change. But I do remember we still talked a little bit of NFL and some other kind of viral clips in this studio. It took even after that, I'd probably say, honestly, close to like 100 episodes in where we really started to focus and narrow down our scope there and started to realize that while there are other great outlets in this space, I think of course, off the top of the head, the D2football.com, D3football.com, who have provided the news outlets and stories and coverage on a very wide scale for a long, long time before, you and I were even in the game. We do such a different thing. We provide such a different service. And I thought that we could supplement the guys like that and do a really good job of bringing a different energy and a different product to small school football. It was just taking the time and resources and just putting it all into this one deal. And, it was not as easy of a decision, I think, as you might think, because the original thought was, hey, if we talk about a little bit of big college football, we might get some Oklahoma fans, we might get some Michigan fans to click on a video, and then they stay to hear about some of these other teams that we talk about. That was the original thought, try and create this like quote unquote funnel process of these big school fans to find out and discover the small school football. But what we realized is that again, you just become noise in a very crowded space. And I'd much rather put my time, energy, and money and resources towards, covering more and more of the guys at this level, because man, when you cover three divisions, it's tough to give everyone their shot. It's really difficult. So that was not maybe an easy decision, but I think the right one for sure in the long run.
What does D1 Rejects mean to you now versus when that name first came into your head?
It's a good question. I think the best way to articulate it would be, and I've gotten asked this question probably 5 times in the last week, as opposed
Hmm.
to I would have never been asked this before, is that, is D1 Rejects your full-time job? And I was asked that by a couple media members, couple, parents of athletes and other things. And I was surprised, but also kind of like humbled by the fact that they would even consider that, because, in the past, our production, our product, our platforms would not come across as though this was someone's full-time occupation, or I was making a living off of this. And by no means am I making a ton of money off D1 Rejects. Like, I am pretty transparent about that. I make enough that I just reinvest it back into the show. I'm not out here spending a bunch of checks that I get from who knows what. But to have people maybe see our product visually on whatever platform that is that they consume it on, and think in their head that this looks like a full-time job for a person or even a team of people, it's probably the most flattering question that I've been asked very recently. And so, to me, to more directly answer your question, what does it mean to me now versus then? Now, D1 Rejects, it started off as a way for me to build my portfolio and to get a lot of reps doing just this, right? Talking with people. And usually the chairs are flipped and I'm the interviewer instead of the interviewee. But now it's changed into, is this something that I can grow to be sustainable? And like I talked about earlier, is this something that I can create and leave in small school football after I'm done, right? Not to say that that's when I die, or maybe it's when I move on to a different position in my quote unquote real job. I don't know what that looks like. But to me, this is something now where D1 Rejects started for me. It started for Kobe Manzo to get myself more reps and to build a portfolio. D1 Rejects has turned into, at least my goal, it's turned into the platform for small school football. And I want it to be less attached with Kobe Manzo and more involved with the players, and kind of leaving small school football better than I found it.
Well, you actually absolutely have done that. There's no question about it.
Thanks, man.
One of the first conversations you and I had, and you mentioned reinvesting back into the business or back into the show. One of the first conversations we had is you said that whenever you feel like you're getting comfortable with the show, you switch it up.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's so true because this show just keeps getting better and better and better. And since we've really gotten to know each other, it feels like once a week you're like, "Hey, man, like we're doing this now," and I'm like, "Man, this guy means business." And where does that mindset come from? Of, hey, if I feel like we're just coasting and we're feeling comfortable, like we better change something with this.
I think that's all just athletics, right? Growing up in athletics, that's, you can't get comfortable, and that's like off-season training. Like, whenever you feel like you start to coast, like, you need, it's whether it's a teammate, a coach, or a strength and conditioning kind of trainer type deal to light a fire under your ass and get things moving. So, and not every one of those jumps is this like massive leap. Like, we're talking about baby steps sometimes, where I just installed a monitor, like a swivel arm monitor mount in the studio the other day. Like, that's nothing. Like, that's such a tiny change. But for me, that's going to change the way I can run the show. That's going to give me a little bit more flexibility in terms of how I produce and engage with the guest. Or, right now I'm talking to you on a new camera. We invested in 2 of those to up the visual quality of our show and really get into some of those live game day shows for the fall. And some of those are a lot bigger changes than others. I just feel, to me, I want it to be sustainable, but I'm always, always, always watching our previous episodes and being very critical of how we present information and always trying to be better. Now, a lot of that is the visual production, whether it's the graphics, the overlays, the cameras, and production. But a lot of that too is the information, right? How am I going through and making sure that we are pronouncing names correctly? How am I going through and making sure that I vet my sources, or that I'm trying to get the most in-depth information? And so to me, it's like, I don't know if there's a great way to directly answer the question, but there's so many little things that I go back and tweak, and obviously they accumulate to become what you see on every Tuesday morning when we upload the podcast. So that's what that's the mindset I've always had in terms of kind of every aspect of my working career, whether it's Northern or D1 rejects. Is like you said, as soon as I get comfortable, let's go back and critically examine this thing and tear it apart, build it back up again, and see if we can't be even better.
Yeah, you mentioned Tuesday mornings. I was very intentional about when I put my show out because I did not want to release on the same day as you. But
No way.
no, I'm serious. I was like, okay, when's this dude put out his show?
That's
Not going to be that
hilarious.
day. Let's do a different day. You mentioned continuing to prep for these shows. What's a show prep look for you? I'm always really curious about that.
Whew.
From start to finish. What does go about? Reaching out to the guests, reaching out to your co-host, putting together a document. Like, what does that look like from start to finish?
Yeah, I mean, it's any given week, right? And I think that's the beauty of this show, is that we're talking about, obviously the offseason right now is a little bit different because we're going through these conference previews and some of these other things, but this is very much a news-based podcast. So everything obviously that we talk about on this show is happening right now. And so you have little time to kind of react to all these different news stories and pieces that come across the desk, so to speak. But for me, in season, that consists of trying to watch as much football as I can on any given Saturday, identify some top targets for guys who have unique stories or big time games, reach out to them on that Saturday night, try and get them locked in on Sunday or Monday morning and get this thing going. But in the offseason right now, man, we're going through, I'll give you the example of these D2 conference previews, right? This week, we'll be going through the PSAC, the PSAC. It's a D2 conference in Pennsylvania. And so for me, there are some people that do a very good job at in-depth reporting at the D2 level, D2football.com. Wayne Cavadi has done some really in-depth written reporting on the D2 football teams. He's a great follow as well. But for me, knowing that those guys provide these in-depth services here and there, these really deep looks at these teams and these deep cuts, I said, instead of reaching out to all these individual staffs and trying to give this deep dive on every program that would take us hours and hours to talk about, let's give you the surface level. Let's give you everything you need to know at a glance about these teams heading into the fall. And so identifying transfers coming in and out, identifying trends from last year, statistically, how did they hold up in the conference, individuals, top returners on both sides of the ball, all three phases coming back in 2025. For me, it's trying to give these guys and these teams the respect of doing the research and honoring, I guess, each one of their teams. But again, to more directly answer your question, the prep is a lot of just digging for facts, digging for stories, scrolling Twitter, trying to find what people are already talking about and seeing what we can put a spotlight on maybe that they've missed.
What do you think is the biggest challenge that you faced, while on this journey, even up to now? Obviously getting started is always one of the hardest parts, but is there a challenge or some adversity that within this show that was really difficult?
Yeah, I mean, in short, like my real job, like that's probably the biggest challenge, to be honest with you. I'm the
Right.
digital media manager at Northern Michigan University. It's a D2 up in Marquette, Michigan. I always tell everyone that we are a lake away from Canada. You, of course, are familiar with the geographic location. Many others have zero idea, but I'm responsible for all of our photo, video, social media, graphic design content for 18, I believe, varsity athletic teams up here at Northern. And in the fall season, especially, man, I mean, August comes, this thing's going to start kicking. I'm going to be working some pretty long weeks trying to get all of our teams and content ready for this year. And so, in short, the real job is the biggest adversity, where, my weekend is oftentimes, booked up with Northern stuff and events. And so, like I said, I try to watch as much football as possible. I just simply don't have the time, right? I only have one of me, and I don't have the time to sit down and watch every game. And that to me is the biggest hurdle that I've tried to, work around. You can't necessarily just get over it, but it also, a longer way of answering this is that I've got a lot of help there too. I'm going to have a group of 21 student interns this fall at Northern.
Shout
And
out.
so they are going to lighten the load for me tenfold. Like, it's a very valuable thing. One, because we got to have people out to cover all of our teams, but two, it's going to lighten my workload a little bit so that I have more time to devote to the big things at Northern. But also, obviously, I don't want to be working 60 or 70-hour weeks. I want to be able to get away and work on D1 Rejects, this passion project, of mine. So the biggest hurdle is really my other obligations, and also just trying to be a perfectionist, right? You're always looking back and examining what I've done in the past, and that can be a very good quality. It can also be pretty self-destructive, where sometimes you just got to understand what works and roll with it for a while before you have the opportunity to breathe and go back. So for me, it's been, right now is a great time to go back and reflect and change in the off season. But you'll obviously find once we get in season, there will be a lot of status quo. You have to get into a rhythm because the football season is a long one. And if you burn yourself out along the way, that's recipe for disaster.
You're telling, stories every week that I feel like a lot of others, without you, their stories may never get told, to the general public. How do you go about determining which guest is going to fit that show,
Yeah.
or just which guest? Do you really like which story do you want to tell that week? What goes into that?
And you know what? That's probably the hardest part of this is, at the end of the day, I'm the executive producer, so to speak, just to give myself an absolutely phony title of this show. And I have to be the one to determine what is newsworthy and what isn't. And so,
Hmm.
where 2 years ago, 3 years ago, if someone were to reach out and say, "Hey, man, I'd love to be on the pod," I would be like, boom, awesome. Let's get you booked. Let's get you on here and talk. I don't even know like much about you, but I'll do some research. Let's talk about you, your team. Now it's a great problem to have, but that's not the case anymore, right? I have to be a little bit more proactive in determining what is the most newsworthy piece that people want to hear about, and a lot of times that comes maybe at the expense of certain teams or players that otherwise maybe I would have had on. And to more directly answer your question, I go on tangents before I ever answer, if you
I
can't
love it.
realize
All
that yet.
for it.
But to more directly answer your question, in season for me, it's all about who are the guys coming off the biggest games or going into the biggest games that need to be spotlighted on the national level. And also you balance that with who are the guys that are going into a game that maybe it's 2, 4, and 5 football teams, but this is a big time rivalry matchup, or this is a story in the making about a comeback from an injury or a certain coach being. There's so many different random storylines that I think we have the privilege to cover. And a lot of that is pivoting on the fly. I go back, we had a player from Slippery Rock on the show not too long ago, someone who probably wouldn't have been on the show otherwise. He was like a redshirt freshman. He saved someone's life, pulled them out of a burning vehicle. And you're like, as soon as you see that headline, you're like, you're coming on D1 Rejects, hopefully, right? You reach out immediately and are like, would love to talk to you about this story. That is phenomenal. Like, just would be privileged to have that type of human on the show. But then other weeks, like this week, there wasn't really any news ticker type news coming out of D2 or D3 football. Obviously, we'll talk about the top 25 rankings on the show, but that's where it gets a little bit more difficult. So you have to go through and really find, hey, what's a fun story or what's a fun personality or prospect? And when I get into those weeks, my top priority actually becomes highlighting a new team. So for this week, for example, Sean McTaggart's coming on the show. He's the quarterback at East Stroudsburg University down in Pennsylvania. He was my pick, one, because he's a fantastic quarterback coming back for the PSAC in 2025, but also off the top of my head, I don't believe we've had someone from East Stroudsburg on the show. So the offseason is a great time for me to find these guys and find these pockets of players, coaches, admin, whatever it is, from these teams that haven't been represented on our program, and try and give them their 20 minutes of limelight, so to speak.
I guess on the flip side now to that question, or to that answer, I should say, my show obviously is mostly focused on the coaches side of things, and
Sure.
these guys are working pretty absurd hours at times.
Yeah.
Is there some times where you're looking at these coaches that you really want to get on? Obviously, I'm sure this happens, but how do you go about? I guess for me, I'm more curious because I'm going into my first football season of the show. How do you find time for them to be like, hey, coach? Can I get you on in the 15 minutes that you might have free of your day?
Yeah, honestly, a lot of it is just at least the ones that I have some prior relationships with. It's just a DM, right? It's just messaging
Right.
on Instagram or Twitter. I refuse to call it X, but really, it's just a DM here or there. And if I'm making like a first initial contact with a coach, or maybe it's a quote unquote bigger guest, like Tony Anise, for example, yeah, I'm sending an email over to coach and to the SID that's appropriately covering the, you know what I mean? I'm going through the right channels, but I'll say this, and I don't want to throw, like, SIDs do phenomenal work and they have to wear a lot of hats at a lot of these small schools. The unfortunate side of that is, especially in season, there's not a lot of SIDs that are answering their emails on Saturdays or Sundays, even Monday mornings, because they're just busy people. For me, I have gone directly to the source and directly to the athlete for a long time. I'm reaching out to these guys on social media. If I have a mutual contact and I can hit them with a text or a call, I'm texting or calling them on a Saturday or a Sunday to try and get them on the show. Because to me, this is a show all about the players, and I've had but a few instances in the past where sports information directors and other administration, again, very few and far in between, but they've actually gotten in the way, and some of their protocols have not allowed their student athletes to come on the program. That's kind of a
Really?
defeating feeling,
Mm.
right? Where you feel like you've got a good story and a good guest slated to come on the show, and then an SID hits you with, yeah, we have to get this approved by blank, blank, and blank. And it's like, well, the show's happening tonight. Like,
Right.
we could, I guess, reschedule. But again, you talk about that a week later, that's old news. No one's trying to hear about
Mhm.
something that happened, more than a week or two ago. And that's been kind of a tough deal. But to answer your question, yeah, like, I'll reach out to, when I'm making first kind of impressions deal. Yeah, I'll send out more of an official email. But a lot of times, the guys that come on D1R better be watching the inbox, man. Watch the Twitter inbox, watch the Instagram DMs, and check that phone, man. Keep the ringer on for sure.
You know, what do you think makes really good sports content in your eyes? Because I don't know about you, but I don't watch my own show too often after it goes out.
Sure.
But when it comes to sports content that you're watching or you're listening to, what do you think, really makes good sports content?
Yeah, to me, it's a blend of sports performance and human interest. I think it's probably the best way I could kind of shortly articulate that, where I want to bring on the guys that have had a very big impact on the field and combine that with a riveting story off the field. That to me is probably the most important sports story, and something that's inspired me in this show, and something that I want to emulate and bring to D1 Rejects in the future. When you're watching College Game Day and you go from laughing your head off because Corso just fired a shotgun on set, or McAfee just got the whole crowd going in the chant. 2 minutes later, you're in tears because you're listening to Tom Rinaldi talk about this heartwarming or sometimes heartbreaking story about someone in the college football landscape or somebody adjacent. And that mix of emotions, the way that programs like Game Day I'll always reference, but the way that programs like that and stories like that have your heart on this roller coaster and this, like, yo-yo kind of string of just up, down, and all around, that to me is what makes the best sports content, where you can bridge the gap between people who have performed at a very high level and have perfected their craft at their respective sport level, institution, whatever that may be, and combine that with a human interest angle and component that makes people resonate with others and kind of identify with other people's stories.
You mentioned the game day. Let's get into this
Hell
because
yeah.
you know what you have done on it with your version of College Game Day has been nothing short of incredible. How did that first start? How, obviously a lot of people might want to do something like that, but the execution side of things is always the challenging part.
Yeah.
When were you able to finally say, "We're doing this. We're gonna do this," and how did that all come about?
That's a great question. That's something I wanted to do forever, right? Bring a small school game day. We call it D1R game day. I don't know if that name will change, but you can guarantee one thing, whatever it's called, it will be back in 2025. And I'm very excited to say that. And Lee Corso said it best, the GOAT. We're in the entertainment business. Football is our vehicle. And that's something, to me, that's what I want to bring. I am not Pat McAfee. I love Pat McAfee. I want to bring the same energy and excitement that he brings to all these different campuses around the country. I wish I could go to every single campus. There is not, a short list in my head. These are the only places that I'll go and cover, right? Obviously, you're limited geographically and financially by certain, different factors and obstacles. But it started with that idea. Then I said, okay, how do we make this a reality? And I went out, I built a desk, because you can't have a game day show without a legit desk, right? So you build a desk, you reach out to a couple different schools, and Coach Janice and Lacrosse hit us back. They're like, this sounds pretty damn cool. Like, let's do this. Had a little bit of a prior relationship with Coach Janis outside of football, had the chance to talk with him. So I thought that that might be a good in for us. They absolutely trusted us. They had no visual representation of what this would look like. They trusted us to bring this on campus. We had Coach Janis on the show pregame, took some time out of his prep to come over there and visit with us. That was a surreal deal. That was really fun. Going back and watching the clips of the Eagles like walking out from behind us as they go and ready to take the field. Again, though, I go back and watch that game day and I cringe the entire time. One of our cameras was backwards. The one on me and Jimmy is like flipped the whole production. Didn't even realize it was so like high on adrenaline, so to speak. And like there's so many little production things here and there that I look back and I watch and I'm like, man, I need to deliver a better product. And that's the goal for this year. But the one thing that I do feel so confident about is that our energy and passion, like on that set in La Crosse, the frozen tundra that it was that day, that absolutely came across. Like you can tell I was probably too fired up for the majority of the show. I had an energy drink for the first time in a long time that morning on the drive over to La Crosse there. But to me, if that's the one thing that comes across is how passionate we are about the sport, the rest of it can kind of take care of itself. I'm just excited to see what it looks like in a month or so.
What can the community expect in 2025? If you would share maybe one thing about this show that either you're most excited for, or a game day that's on your radar. What are you most looking forward to with this season of D1R game day?
I think I just flip it right back. Like it is the community that I think I'm excited about. The way that when we bring this show to campus, how can we turn this into something that engages a student body? How can we turn this into something that engages an alumni base or current athletics admin and staff at the university or just local community members? How can we turn this into something that gives all those people on the fence of going to watch their local D2, Division 3 or NAIA football team, gives them that extra motivation to show up on a Saturday morning or a Saturday afternoon to watch some really high level football. So for me, we're going to feed off that energy and we're going to bring some big speakers behind our set. We'll be playing music. They'll be able to hear us live during the show, hear all of our outrageous takes. They'll even get to be involved in the show, maybe doing some of the picks for some of the game day winners and those kind of things. We're going to find ways to get people involved in these game day shows because for me, that's what we bring. We bring an added element, an excitement factor to an atmosphere that should already be electric at a lot of these different college campuses. And so in our preliminary talks with some of these athletics administration and their staffs, that's the one thing I'm trying to sell. I'm going to give people in your community, people at your university or college, another reason to show up on Saturday. From there, I mean, we can talk as much football as we want. We're trying to get people to show up and be excited about this level of football, man.
Well, I'll tell you what, I am so excited to see what this year of of D1R game day brings.
Hell yeah. Both of them.
And we'll right. I cannot wait to see what this season looks like for you. We're looking forward to this 2025 football season. Is there a matchup or a team that you are most looking forward to this season?
Oh, Seth, you gonna put me on a spot like this? Um,
Absolutely.
um, man, to me, to give you like, okay, I got a great answer, and I'll give you the coach speak answer first. The game and the
Okay.
matchup that I'm looking forward to the most is the next one. The next
Okay.
one that we get to be in person for, the next one that I get to cover from the sidelines instead of covering it from the studio. That's the correct political answer. If that's all you'd like to hear, fast forward. But otherwise, like in terms of actual games, like I need to see an Anchor Bone Classic in person. I need to be down for the GV and Ferris matchup for this season. I need to be down for playoff games. It'd probably be in the Midwest just because of geographically where we're at. Is that down? Is that down in Lubber Stadium at GV? Is that down at Perkins at Whitewater? Is that down at an Alma or a Hope in the MIAA? Even down into like a GMAC squad, GAC, who knows, right? You open the book. But yeah, I guess if I had to pick one, like the Anchor Bone Classic, I need to be in attendance for that one. That's one that I wish we would have gotten to before, but that would be an atmosphere I think we need to be a part of.
I love it. So this last, little segment here is just a quick hits. You are more than
Okay.
welcome to elaborate on as much of it as you want, or just a quick little answer, however you would like to rip this. First one, very simple. Best football movie.
Best football movie? I
Yeah.
mean, I'm just gonna go like immediately off the head. Remember the Titans, like that. First and
Okay.
foremost, feels like a movie that a lot of people need to rewatch.
Right. I love that, especially nowadays. Right.
Yes, need that.
Speaking of movies, repping the Waterbury Open from Happy Gilmore, the first one, of course. This is the Waterbury Open hat.
I like that. I like that.
Shout out, Happy Gilmore too coming out. Um, dream guest for D1R.
Oh, Pat McAfee, easy.
I love that. That's kind of where I figured that was going.
Yep, that would be electric, and it would need to be in person too. I would not settle
Of
for a Zoom
course.
interview with Pat, and I wouldn't make him come here. I'm going to Pat, right? But that's got to be in person, and that needs to happen before this show runs its course, man. Absolutely.
I believe you. That will happen. Non football slash non D1R thing that you do to stay creative.
To stay creative. Wow, that's a
I'll
good
give you
question,
mine.
actually.
Me, for
Okay.
example, like this maybe isn't a creative thing, but running for me, it's also my form of exercise. But when I am running on my daily run, it's where I'm my most creative, and I'm always
Hmm.
like new things are popping in my head all the time. But do you have a thing like that that you do to stay locked
Yeah,
in or
no, to
creative?
your point, like backpacking. I'm a big like camper backpacker. Have dragged my girlfriend into it now. We do it together. I bring my dog Buzz with me. You might have seen his tail go by a little bit ago. But that for me actually serves as that because when you're unplugged from everything, the brain starts to work overtime because there's not this excess of stimuli, whether it's audio, visual, or otherwise. And so for me, I get a lot of time to reflect when I'm out on the trail or in the tent or whatever, because there's so many less distractions. That's something I love to do outside of obviously covering football on the digital media side of things. And for me, has kind of served as not maybe a creative outlet where I'm creating pieces of work, but man, I actually bring a notebook with me when I go camping because my phone usually I don't really have it with me, so I'll bring a
I love
notebook and I'll
that.
write down all these ideas. I'll come back. We just went to Tequamanon Falls and did like 2 nights over there in the state park. I came back and I had 2 pages full of notes on how we can maybe add things to game day or the show or whatever else, and it's like you can't turn that part of the brain off, I think.
I love that. Yeah, I'm a notes guy too. Like there's probably a note back in here way back when that says reach out to Kobe Manzo for the first time. Like
That's awesome.
there's literally probably one of these in here because I write everything down in here. But
One
anyways,
of my notes from
uh,
this trip is like, logistically, how do we get a potential mascot head for a game day show this year? Or and then the follow-up question was like, do we even want to try that? Is it corny? Eventually I was like, nah, let's try it. We'll see. We'll see if we can't make that happen. That'd be sick.
that'll happen. That'll happen. Um, if you could have dinner with any three people in history, dead or alive, who would it be?
Holy cow. Have dinner with any 3 people in history. I'm gonna go with The Rock for one. I love The
Okay,
Rock. I
the
think
entertainer himself.
Yep. And that's again, I think in similarly to Pat McAfee, someone who has commanded the public eye for such a long time, and that's so hard to do in a good light. And
Right.
he's not perfect. Again, and some people maybe dislike him, but like he's demanded the public eye for a long time, and his ability to uh keep people's attention and to keep a very good kind of persona about himself, and also his business acumen of being able to branch out and do the Terramana tequila and do the Zoa
Oh,
energy drinks.
shout
Like
out.
he's a multifaceted guy. And so I think for myself, someone who has aspirations of being maybe a media personality in the future, going in that lane and then kind of spreading out and branching out, so to speak, and building out that portfolio, he would be a really sweet guy to talk to that is obviously still living, thankfully, with us. Um, Another one I think would be Kirk Herbstreit. I think he's
Mm,
got to be on that list. He's a guy that, again, massive game day fan, but of course, hearing him call so many games, to me, very much the not opposite of Pat. I think they have a lot of things in common. Kirk is the absolute professional, right? When he is at the desk, he is absolutely going to give you the really non-biased info. He's going to shoot you straight. He is going to be the most buttoned up and professional. And Pat has kind of helped him maybe loosen that top button a little bit when he's on the show. But Kirk, to me, is a guy I have a ton of respect for in the booth and outside of it, for the way he's been able to navigate. And even when his dog rose to more stardom than himself for a period of time there. So Kirk and The Rock would definitely be two. Um, as far as a third goes, I'd have to go with like trying to think if there's like a really good like president or something, but then I'm like, oh boy, I pick a president and then half
Might not
half
want
the
to
people
dip into
are.
those can of worms. Yeah. You just say
I don't know
George Washington.
necessarily
I
who
mean,
my
George Washington would be good. I mean, I don't even know if that dude could speak English. I mean,
is that.
he.
Yeah, right. Is that like the neutral pick? Like I'm not sure who
Yeah,
the is that. I don't know if that's the neutral pick, but those two guys jump in my head right away as guys who I like have a lot of reverence for, like a lot of respect for the two of them and the different ways that they've been able to approach their respective careers. And then I go back, someone maybe more in the business landscape, like a Mark Cuban or something along those lines, like an entrepreneurial mindset of, that kind of speaks for itself. I think that would also be like a strictly business type mindset where Cuban would be like my business guy I'd love to speak with. Kirk is like your media personality, professional. And then you have The Rock, who has his fingers intertangled in so many different things and is able to balance that in his public persona. I think that's a good variety.
that's a pretty good list right there. Have you ever watched Mark Cuban's Masterclass?
No, dude.
That's one I probably watch that one once a month when I'm dealing with
Okay.
sizzle stuff.
I'm gonna check that out. I like that.
I know it's a paid subscription, whatever, but
Shoot, it's
Mark
probably worth it.
Cuban's it's called the sport of business is the one that he has on there. It's like an hour long where he just goes at business, and I learned so much when I was first getting into this whole sizzle thing of like don't take money early, don't like there's so much good stuff in there. But
I like that. I'm gonna check
I'm
that
gonna
out,
make this.
actually.
Yeah, absolutely. This one's gonna be hard. I know. I'm sorry, but Mount Rushmore of D1R shows.
Uh,
And
um,
if you would like to decline this question, I understand.
no, that's so tough. The game day shows, like, that's on the Rushmore for sure, right? Like that to me is on the Rushmore. I wouldn't say our first episode in the studio, for example, but one of those first kind of 5 to 10 episodes in the studio. I remember specifically like myself, Jimmy Martin, Tyshawn King used to play running back up here at Northern, and we were all just like starting to get into a groove. And I remember we all like had sunglasses on for the start of this episode way back when, and it was like we were starting to take ourselves a little less serious, but also you really have fun with this thing and like get into a groove. That to me maybe is not an episode, but like a point of the show that really stands out. You go back, the Trevor Nowaski show, very very recently. That's got to be on my Rushmore for sure. Having Trevor on when he was a Saginaw Valley product and someone that not enough people were talking about, and then to have him on the flip side where he just had a phenomenal season with the Lions, had to step up at linebacker for them, make some big time plays. Having him back on the show was incredible. That's on my Rushmore for sure. I mean, you go back, like there were a couple in the dorms that as corny and cringy as they were, like at the time, were definitely Rushmore type shows. Those are the ones that jump out right away off the top of my head. I don't know. I have to do a little bit more digging. I should have prepped. I should have
That's all right. I
done a
gave
little
you
more digging on that.
nothing before the show. I literally gave you nothing. I
That's
like to
okay.
do that on purpose to kind of see what's just sitting in there.
But those
But
two for sure pop out. The game day, of course, the Nowaski one very recently. Like those are two really good shows. Because I always think back to like interviews, right? Like incredible guests that we've had,
Yeah.
and we've obviously had a time. Like that Anise interview just very recently was so awesome. He was incredible and gave us a lot of his time. But yeah, the Nowaski one definitely sticks out for me as of late as a show that I will look back on for a long time and be like, that's got to be one of our best.
Yeah. Last question here before we get you out of here. If you could give advice to someone that is looking to break into this space specifically, what would it be?
Just start, man. I said it earlier. Just begin. You have to start creating content. And if the fear of failure is greater than the fear of people mimicking you or making fun of you or whatever it is, that's fine, right? I've been afraid to fail, at multiple times, and you just can't let that stop you. I think that's so important, because to say that I'm not afraid to fail, or I'm not afraid to go out and have a show and totally bomb, if we go on campus and, now I feel very confident behind this microphone. That was not always the case. Like I still get very, very nervous to do the show on a regular basis, especially when we start doing these live shows. That'll bring a whole nother piece to that. But to me, you can start making content with and nothing, literally nothing but your phone. You look and there is a whole breed of content creators now that use nothing other than a chroma key. They put a little video of themselves talking, a photo behind, a little bit of music, and boom, you have content and you can build a following off of that. To me, the two biggest pieces of advice would be one, start making content, and then two, find your voice, find your niche. Don't do it the other way around. Because if you worry so much about finding your niche or finding your voice or nitpicking the different ways you want to start, you'll never start in the first place. Your first product is not going to be perfect. It's not going to be a polished product. To me, personally, it's much more important to start creating content and figure it out along the way, as opposed to having this perfect concept and formula before you even hit the record button.
My goodness. Epic. You are an
Great.
electric factory of a human being. You've been so cool to me, and I've learned so much from you already,
Thanks, man.
from
Likewise.
our conversations. And I'm so excited for this what's next for you and this season for you. You just keep crushing it, man, and you're a big inspiration to a lot of people.
Thank you, brother. We're excited to get you in the fold over here, get you behind the desk, get you on the Zoom call, whatever that may be.
Look at that.
I'm excited for the next stage of this. And again, I reiterate, like, this is no longer a solo production, right? Like, I'm fortunate to have people that help me out with this thing. This will only go as far as people allow us to. That's really what it is. The more people that support what we do, and that's our job. Our job is to entertain them and to bring them information. I want to be entertaining and informative, not the other way around. Priority number one is to entertain. Priority number two is to inform. D1 Rejects is not here to be your investigative reporting or your in-depth analysis here and there. We want to give you good information. We want to entertain you. We want to elevate small college football, not just cover it. We're not here to cover small school football. We're here to take it to the next level. We're here to put it on a stage that people have not seen before, man. I think that's what's important to know about us.
Dude, fire me up. I love that hat as well. It's a great hat.
It fits like
Wherever
a glove.
you got it. Yeah, it does. It looks like, I think it
It is sharp. It looks good, actually.
It does.
Very nice.
I can see that. It's I can see it good. It's good for a good round of golf. That's for sure.
Yeah.
It stands out on the golf. It's a little, it can get a little dirty, but it sure looks sharp right now on camera though. Holy cow.
Yeah, this is
But
still pretty fresh out. This only has a couple wears in it. It's still pretty fresh out the box.
There we go. Well, Kobe, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. I can't thank you enough for being cool to me. And man, you're a big inspiration for this show, and you're a big inspiration to me in general. And I'm so excited to work on some things here pretty dang soon. And we'll see you very, very soon. So
thank you, man. Everything you just said, right back at you. I could not be more excited to have another passionate individual covering, whether it's small school football or otherwise. Your conversation was a bunch of different people, and I feel lucky that we get to have people like you in the fold with what we're doing. So that's a pretty cool deal for me as well.
Thank you for listening to the Left Hash Call. For more episodes, you can go to Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. And be sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter, and even Facebook if you're into that. And I would really appreciate you subscribing, following, or just continue to listen. We'll see you next time. Peace.